Hi and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are talking about the MVC pattern. Well, the MVC pattern is a pattern for very flexible architecture design in programming, which is used a lot and which is still a very practical thing. There are a lot of derivatives from it, but it is very, very useful and great to know because all the big programs are basically programmed in the manner of MVC. Well, it is basically about splitting our source code, splitting our application in a model, a view, and a controller. Well, that is also where the MVC comes from. The M from model, the V from view, and the C from controller. And there are some very, very important goals, which are at first the extensibility of the program itself. Well, that basically means that we are able to put in new source code, new functionality in our program pretty easy, and we can extend our application in all manners. For example, we can put new functionality in the model, or we can maybe put in a few different views, where we see later a few examples. Well, the next part is that we have very easy changes, and that is because we have basically three independent components in our application. The model, the view, and the controller are all independent components that are usually controlled by some framework. For example, the Spring framework is very great for Java, and it's basically the industry standard right now. And the next part is reusability. We actually encapsulate our model, view, and controller, and with that, these are independent components that can be reused kind of quickly and can be adapted to new programs kind of easily. Alright, so let's have a look at the structure of MVC. Well, here I have at first our controller, because our controller is the center of everything. Let's assume we have a web application running. Then the controller is basically our browser. And when we send something, we request something to the controller of the web application. We send a request and say, for example, we want this and this website. Then the controller decides the model. So it basically generates or knows what model to use. And that, for example, dependent on if you are logged in the website or if you're not logged in. So that will get you different models, different basis of the response in the end. So then the model will be created and given back to the controller, which uses this model and the knowledge from the request to decide what view to use. Well, so there, the view will be decided and then in the end created and given back to the controller. And with that, with a model and with a view, the controller will paint the overall painting and then will give the response to the user back who requested the website or a certain part of an application, for example. And that is basically what happens in our MVC application. We have interactions between controller and the model, and we have interactions between the controller and the view. And the very, very important point there is that the model and the view don't communicate with each other. So the model is independent of the view and vice versa. And everything just happens in our controller in the end. Alright, so if we keep going, then we have a few great examples for that. Number one is I18N internationalization. For example, you can on a website click whether you want the German, the Spanish, or whatever version you want of the website. And based on your click, the controller will decide what view to give you, and much more. If there are maybe some complicated laws or whatever, then it will also decide which model to use based on the country you're in. For example, your browser sends some location objects to a web application, and that basically decides where you're from. So, depending on the laws of the country, there might be different model implementations, and obviously on the surface there are some language implementations that are quite different from each other. The next part, for example, is user rights. Imagine a banking application that you use. It might be on your phone or in the browser or somewhere else. Then there are some differences, whether you log in or maybe a friend of yours or maybe a completely other person. So there will be difference in the banking program, so the banking view in the end, because otherwise there might be data sent to the user who requests the information, which is not really allowed to have those data. So the separation of view and model is there very, very important, where we also make sure that no secret data is sent to non-authorized persons. And the next thing is also websites. For example, if you are logged in, you usually have a kind of different view of the website than if you're not logged in. Or the same holds if you worked with AWS, for example, the management console. You sometimes don't have the rights to decide what instances you run or to set up certain services in there. So that could be done by an MVC architecture where the user rights will be considered. The next point is web versus GUI versus console applications, where it also depends on the view and the model what is actually possible to do in an application. Often the GUI, the graphical user interface, is not as mighty as the console. For example, you can do a lot, or you have a lot more functionality in the console, because simply not all functionality is implemented in the graphical user interface. So that would be also an application for the model, for the MVC model. One example there is Git, for example. Git is a console program, and there are a lot of views, a lot of programs that offer you a graphical user interface. Or another point is system configuration, where also in Windows, for example, you can remotely control the system configuration of others, set up network addresses and so on, which is often kind of tricky if you want to do that over a graphical user interface. And it is a lot easier if you do it through PowerShell, for example. And the last point I want to mention is website rendering. If you think you have a phone, a browser and a tablet, and usually the websites look kind of different. They may have the same content, but the content is usually displayed differently, and that is a different view for each website. For whether you're on a phone, a browser or a tablet, or maybe even a text browser in your console. So that are the examples for the MVC. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for me. I hope the video helped you. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to always get informed whenever I'm uploading new videos. Well, in the end, post me down in the comments below what you think about the video. What do you think I might be able to improve, or in general, what did I miss? So that's it for me today. Have a great day. Bye.